Hi, Peter here. And if you're a coach or an educator or a specialist who has built a business around your expertise, this video is for you, and I'm sure you will resonate. But before getting into any of that, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. You see, before getting into this world of business and coaching, my background is actually in engineering. And over the years, I developed a reputation of turning complexity into simplicity. And that was translated into my first coaching business around creative leadership. And people would come to me exactly because of that framework, of that simplicity approach. So, as a business owner, if you find that your business is heavier than it should, it's probably because of the different contamination that you've been unknowingly suffering from listening to all these different tactics and strategies that you're probably following from different people, right? And that's not to say that some of those things they don't work, but you probably feel overwhelmed with all these different pieces and things that you need to implement in your business. So you kind of get confused, right? So this is especially relevant when it comes to your messaging in creating content, whether it's video or text or emails that you want them to deeply resonate with the clients that you want to attract, right? So what most people tend to do to push against this situation is creating more content, use more tactics, using more angles, etc., right? But the thing is, if you're not super clear about who you are building things for, that consistency that you're putting every day just means repeating that uncertainty that you're probably feeling as well. So that's actually the reason of why very capable people, very experienced people feel stuck. It's not because of their skill, it's not because of their lack of motivation. It's most likely because the lack of clarity, deep clarity around that knowledge, deep knowledge again, that you need to have about your ideal client profile. And because of the lack of this deep clarity from the get-go, all the other areas in the business, they get affected too. When I built my first business around my expertise, I didn't have an audience and I didn't run ads and I didn't follow any special formulas. But what I had was extreme clarity about the people that I wanted to serve. Not only who they were, but what they were navigating, what they were tired of, what they're actually ready for, what specifically triggered their decisions, and way more stuff. And because I had this deep clarity and deep knowledge about that ideal client profile, when I was creating content, it always felt like really natural, light, and fun to produce. And most importantly, it was always deeply resonant to the right people that I wanted to attract. So I never felt that I was pushing that boulder uphill, which is probably how you feel about creating content yourself. And that clarity and approach led to our first ever launch doing just under 80K in pre-sales over a period of just over 1 month. And that business later grew to 7 figures in sales. So that happened not because we were working harder, quite the opposite. That happened because I was super clear and I had this clarity, deep clarity about the people that the offer was for. So once that's clear, then all the other areas of the business come very clear and very easy as well as a consequence. Because the truth is, any business, doesn't matter what it is, it always operates under three pillars. And these three pillars are marketing, sales, fulfillment, and that's it. It's very simple. This is what I actually call the focus flywheel because each one of these areas will feed each other, and that's what creates momentum. And once that momentum is created, everything else becomes way easier, right? But the thing is, it always starts with the marketing. So if your message is not clear, if it's mushy, if it's, if it feels forced, and if it's not deeply resonant to the right people, then all the other areas will be affected as well. And that's why it feels heavy. And that's why having this deep knowledge and deep clarity about your ideal client profile is so important. But the truth is also that when people normally create their ideal client profile, they normally go like really surface level. They basically describe like who these people are, what their demographics are, and how you as a business owner can help them, right? But again, that does not show deep, crucial aspects about these people. So let me show you a different approach to defining a winning ideal client profile. So the way I see it is there's actually two dimensions to this. There's an horizontal dimension and there's a vertical dimension. So the horizontal dimension is normally, what people do, and they do it like really surface level, as I said before. So they basically pick a market that is, of course, resonant and connected to their expertise, and they define the industry, they define the demographics, and they define or they already know how they can help them, right? So they pick like one of these markets and they establish like these three things, more or less. That's basically what they do, right? But there's also a vertical dimension, which is basically where these people are in their journey. So there's people that are just starting out, which means that they have like specific needs for that part of their journey. But there's other people that have already some traction. So they're not starting from scratch. They already have something going, but something is not really actually going in the way that they would like to. And there's other types of people, for example, that they actually are established, but they hit a plateau. And so again, this means different needs. There's other people that are just thriving. They're going awesome, and they need other things because probably they want more speed of actually attaining better revenue or more profit or whatever it may be, right, for their business. So it's actually the intersection of these two dimensions that will give you a more complete picture about your ideal client profile. So as I said before, normally people that just stay with the horizontal, which is basically defining their industry, the demographics, and how they can help these people. But when you add the vertical dimension, which is what defines where these people are, the intersection of these two dimensions will give you a more complete picture about your ideal client profile. So it's a bit better, but the question is it enough? And in my view, it's not enough. And why it's not enough? Because this defines many different types of people and many different types of businesses within just this definition. So what are the things that are missing? Well, what's missing? It's exactly what's going to give you the resonance to attract these people. Things like your vision, things like psychographics about these people, meaning their values, their beliefs, their lifestyles, their personality, things like what are the three top problems that they're facing, what are their underlying issues, their misconceptions, the language or terms that they use or that they don't use, what kind of things bores them or saddens them, or on the other hand, what are the things that excites them and energizes them? What are their fears? What are their frustrations? What are their desires? And very importantly, how do they make decisions, right? So this is what's going to give you the resonance, and these are just a few examples, but this will give you like the missing piece of resonance when you are basically putting out content to attract the people that you want to attract. So when you have this deep knowledge and deep clarity about your ideal client profile, imagine how everything else becomes so much easier, because you start speaking their language and that gets translated into your marketing and content, which then will feel light, fun, natural, and easy to produce, and that will make you not second guessing every time that you are creating content, right? And that's what makes everything else go when it comes to your machine in your business. And the thing is also that in order for you to define all these things about your ideal client profile, traditionally, this will take you ages, right? It will take you ages to fill out all these things and to keep an eye on whether or not that is actually being followed when you are creating content. But we're living in a world now where technology can speed things, a lot. And if it used wisely, if that technology is used wisely, that will promote your focus and it will safeguard your presence to do the work that really matters to your clients. And also, as a consequence, that will give you a lot of freedom to double down on the most important thing, especially these days, which is your human touch. So going back to that simplicity approach that I've mentioned in the beginning, the most important thing for me is to stay close to my clients as much as possible for the things that truly matter, which is my presence and my custom strategy support for their businesses. So to do that, I want my clients to avoid wasting their time with me on things that they don't need my constant presence for. And with technology these days, it's actually very possible, especially when it comes to AI. So what I did was I've built a small number of specific tools that will help them speed up implementation with co-creation. So it's basically co-creating with them so I can be more present and effective when I'm dealing with the clients. So we can go through all the things that they were able to produce on their own without wasting time with producing stuff with me because it's not needed, right? So I created a little ecosystem of custom deep trained GPTs, each one of them outputting custom-made deliverables from your business that can then be used to feed the next GPT in line to speed up implementation. So it goes a little bit like this. It starts with the Client Profile Enricher, which is exactly what we were talking about here today, that will then output a report, okay, a deliverable that then can be used to feed the next GPT in line, which is the offer architect. So you can only have like a winning offer when you are super clear on what the actual client profile is to a deeper level. And in consequence, that offer architect will produce also certain deliverables, meaning the offer itself, that can be used then to use to the next GPT in line so it can produce assets. So it's the asset builder GPT. And again, that asset builder GPT will produce certain outputs that can be used to the content producer GPT. So all of these different GPTs work as a team, and each one of them will basically output stuff for the other one to use. And this is exactly what speeds up implementation and results. Each one of these will work individually, but all of them work as a team for you to produce stuff as quickly as possible in a very streamlined way. So what I'm giving you today is the Client Profile Enricher, which is the first piece into this ecosystem, into my world. You can also see this as a guided diagnostic tool about your ideal client profile for your business. And the way it works is actually very simple and takes less than 10 minutes. So you only have to answer 5 to 6 questions. And in return, the GPT will give you a full report of 8 to 9 pages in which it shows you everything about your client profile, things that you know, and most likely things that you don't know and that they don't know themselves either. And that will basically show you ways of basically align your message that really resonates with them, knowing exactly what blocks or drives their decisions and where your messaging is actually misaligned, and also using language that actually resonates. That will give you way more than just what I described. It will be a full report, as I said before, and will basically give you a clear reference point that you can use straight away and that you actually can build from. So if this sounds that it's useful for you and for your business, you can check the details below on how to get it. And I hope to see you very soon.